Greetings, YouTube. As of today, when I'm filming this, it is May 28th, and it is raw and cold out. I think my wife's going to sue Mother Nature. Today I'm going to talk about some lists. And these are not lists of random questions. These are lists of myths. And not the myths from ancient past, and the Norse, and the Greek, and the Chinese, and the Babylonian. No, these are modern myths. Myths that we tell men and women that aren't true. Which I guess is pretty much the definition of the word myth. Possibly. Alright, who knows. So, we're going to start with the myths that we tell men. And there's also going to be, I'll link to both these lists I'm going to be using and to a thread on Metafilter which dealt with the secondary list. I didn't actually find a thread that dealt with the first one. Sometimes you don't always get as much background as you'd like. Okay, 16 lies we need to stop teaching boys about sex. 1. A big penis is the only way to ever please a lover. That isn't true, because firstly, there's lots of acts you can do with a lover that penis size has absolutely nothing to do. Lots of things you can do in sex that penis size is immaterial. As far as the myth that a large penis is required for everything, some people like large penises. Some people don't. And the average human male penis is around 5.5 inches long. So when you see those huge schlongs in porn, if they are in fact real, they are the outliers. 2. Sex lasts for at least an hour. No. If you're actually pumping away for an hour, there's probably something wrong on someone's end. Good sex lasts as long as good sex lasts. It can be 12 minutes. It can be half an hour. It can be 4 minutes. It can be 30 seconds. If it's good sex and the people involved enjoy themselves, duration is immaterial. Men always want sex. No, men do not always want sex. When men are younger, they are probably more likely to be obsessing about it, but that doesn't mean that they even want it when they're in their peak interest as a teenager. Just because you're male does not mean that you are a constant horn dog. 4. Sex ends with a male orgasm. That's not going to get you many callbacks. Okay? Sex ends. A sex act can end when one person has an orgasm. It can end when 2 people have an orgasm. Or it can end when no one has an orgasm, because the participants realize that it just isn't going to happen. Sometimes you enjoy the sensation, and orgasm isn't important. But if you have the meme in your head that as soon as the male achieves orgasm, it's over, you're going to have some very unhappy partners, particularly if your partner's male. They're going to feel, well, you got yours, where's mine? Well, you're going to have the same reaction with women. They're going to be wondering where theirs is. I've always been a firm believer that you should make sure your partner gets off. That's more important than you getting off. But, you know, maybe that's just me. 5. What you see in porn is what happens during sex. No, it isn't. Porn is a fantasy cranked to 11. And it's a highly stylized fantasy. It's an airbrushed fantasy. It's a photoshopped fantasy. It isn't a fantasy that has anything to do with reality. Now, you can actually find porn out there of real couples, and that's probably going to be a whole lot closer to reality. But that's still being produced for a visual media that needs to sell videos of a certain length. So it's still not going to reflect reality. So don't let what you see in porn influence your sex life. You can be inspired by it. You can say, hey, that looks really cool. Let's try it. Don't be surprised if it doesn't work out the way it did in the film. But don't use it as a book of canon. Alright. 6. Men should always initiate sex. Wrong. That would make you an aggressive asshat. Men should initiate sex when they feel like they are in the mood, and if their partners are in the mood, cool, you get to have sex. If your partner doesn't have in the mood, then you don't get sex. And if a male isn't currently thinking about it and their partner decides to try to initiate it, don't be turned off by that. I've actually had weird people in my life tell me they were turned off when their partner initiated sex. That makes no sense to me. I can understand that your partner is initiating sex and you're just not in the mood, but being turned off by the fact that they tried to initiate it, to my mind, that was odd. 7. Circumcised penises are the right kind. In America, we do an abysmal job of teaching sex education. And circumcision is one of the things that we do abysmally bad as far as discussing in America. I was in my 20s before it occurred to me that there were penises in the world that weren't circumcised in the modern era. I mean, I knew that circumcision was an act, and so there had to have been something that was being circumcised. I got that. But I was not taught that it was something not inclusive to the entire planet, but it was a regional thing. You know, that there are whole segments of the world where that's uncommon. It just never occurred to me. It was never discussed. There are so many things that we don't discuss in the world. Particularly we don't discuss about sex in America. It's very sad. But whether you're circumcised or you're not circumcised, you can still have a perfectly healthy, happy sex life. 8. Men are in charge of buying condoms. No, they're not. Any woman who would like to stay safe should make sure she has condoms on hand. Dental dams would also be good, though you can turn a non-lubricated condom into a dental dam if you'd like, cut the end off, and then split one side down, flatten it out into the dental dam. But everybody should be involved in condoms because they help prevent STIs as well as prevent pregnancies. 9. All men are born with penises. This is a transgender issue. Now, not to mention that there are probably some biological males that aren't born with penises as well. But for dealing with the transgender aspect, if someone identifies as male, as a man, they're a man. They may not be biologically male, but they can still have the gender identity as being a man. And they may never have a penis. They may have surgery to achieve a penis, or it could be something that they do not care whether they actually possess a penis or not. It's going to vary from person to person. It's up to them. But you will encounter people in the world who identify as men who do in fact not have penises. 10. Everyone around you is having sex. This feeds right into the whole entitlement issue that's a hot topic right now. Also the mythology of the lone individual who's not getting laid. Well, I got some news for you. There will always be periods in everyone's life, regardless of your sex, gender, or orientation, when you're not getting laid. And you'd be surprised to understand this, that there are people like that all around you. People that may not be talking about it, they may not be discussing it, but everybody has these periods in their life where they're not getting laid. And the mythology that we build around this is that, well, if you're not getting laid, there's something wrong with you. And the idea is that everyone else must be doing, because they're all normal. Normal is a myth in and of itself. I heard a great quote. It's that normal is what cuts off our sixth fingers and our tails. Normality is not necessarily something we should be striving towards. Happiness and fulfillment should be things that we should be striving for. And there will be times when you will have partners to help you have sex with, and there'll be times when you won't, and you can have a fulfilling sex life by yourself. So not everyone around you is having sex, unless you're going to call masturbation into account, and then maybe everyone is having sex. 11. Liking butt play makes you gay. No, it doesn't. Lots of people enjoy butt play, and their sex, gender, and orientation have nothing to do with this. There are men who like it. There are women who like it. Where they fall on the orientation spectrum and where they fall in the gender spectrum doesn't matter. Some people are into it. Some people aren't. Don't judge anybody else. I have a firm belief in the saying, not your body, not your business. 12. Going down on someone isn't masculine. And that's just crazy. Oral sex is great. And if you can get someone to go down on you, you should really return the favor. Because if you don't, you may not get them to go down on you again. Alright? So, return the favor, folks. It really is the nice thing to do. 13. Men can't get some kinds of STIs. And this is one I had never encountered before. I'd never heard of something so silly. I read this list. I reacquainted myself with it before I did this video, and I'm like, huh? And I read a little blurb under it, and it still didn't make any sense to me. Who think that men can't get STIs? Are they special? Do they have magic powers? No, they do not. Some STIs may be difficult to detect in males, but that just means that they could very well just be carriers, which doesn't make it any better. 14. If you buy someone dinner, you're getting laid. Haha! More entitlement myths. No. No one owes you sex. Ever. Doesn't matter what you do for them, what favor you've done, what you've bought them, how you've treated them. Nothing you do will get you sex if that person doesn't want to give you sex. If they don't want to interact with you, if they don't want to be involved in that way, that's just the way it is. You are not entitled to sex. Ever. The entitlement meme must die in a fire. 15. When men can't get erections, it means they don't want sex. That isn't true. A person could really, really want sex, and sometimes the rocket does not launch. And that is not an indictment of the male. It is not an indictment of their partner. Sometimes these things just happen. That's just the way it is. Bodies are complex. Human psyches are complex. Sometimes they are not always in sync. 16. Men think about sex every 7 seconds. I would love to have known where this myth came from. I mean, I've heard it my entire life. Why 7 seconds? It just seems weird they picked that very specific number, 7 seconds. But no. Again, young males will think about sex far more than probably middle age and older men. But that's not common for everyone. There'll be people who think about sex constantly from as soon as they figure out what their genitals do until they die, and they're ones who think about it very rarely unless someone else brings it up. So, yeah. That's another one of the things that has to die in fire. Okay, now we're going to have myths that society tells girls about sex. 1. Virginity exists. That is a weird one, because virginity is such a nebulous concept, you can't nail it down. It's like trying to grasp a ghost. What does it mean? Do certain acts count? Do certain acts not count? What about if you're into sex with the same sex partner? How does that count? What does that mean? Why don't we just stop discussing virginity and start discussing how the best we can have good sex alone and with partners? 2. Hymens are a sign of virginity. Hymens exist, but hymens are not impenetrable barriers. They are not 100% shield. No, menstrual fluids pass through them. You know, they're not a barrier like the way people have been told they are. Some women don't have them. Some women have them, they just go get it out of the way on their own because of athletics or what have you. So the presence or the absence of a hymen means nothing. Nothing at all. 3. All women are born with vaginas. This again rolls right back into the transgender issue, that someone can identify as a woman even though they are not biologically female. And again, if it's not your body, it's not your business. If someone identifies themselves as a woman, who am I to argue? Who are you to argue? It's not your life. If that person wants to identify as a woman, they identify as a woman, and not all women have vaginas. Or vaginae. I can never remember that. 4. The first time is going to hurt a lot. If it hurts a lot, something's not right. We build this mythology around that concept, that the first time a woman has sex, it has to be painful. And that is self-reinforcing. Because the more a person believes in that, the more anxious and more stressful they will be, which of course will tense them up, make it worse. The best thing you can do is forget that entirely. You can make sure that your partner, if you're male, you can make sure your partner is as relaxed as possible. If you're female, you should make sure that you are as relaxed as possible. Make sure that there is no stress. Do not do this in a crunch time. Make sure you have plenty of time between the two of you. Make sure it doesn't have to be done at a specific time. We must have this sex today. No, you must have it when the moment feels right. If that moment feels like right today, cool. If it feels right 6 months from now, also cool. To help relax, of course, having a few orgasms prior to the actual event will help a lot. Because again, it relaxes you. And of course, I do suggest lubrication. 5. If someone buys you something, you owe him or her sex. Right back to the entitlement issue. No, you don't. Doesn't matter if they buy you the Taj Mahal, you don't owe them squat. If you are not into them, and you don't want to have sex with them, don't have sex with them. 6. Too much sex will stretch you out. No, it won't. The vaginal canal is not made out of something that is rigid. You will recover quite nicely, and you can have sex with many different penis sizes if you so choose, or if your partner wants to use many different size toys, you will be okay. You will not be stressed out forever. People have sex after birth. Few things are going to be used in sex that are bigger than a baby's head. 7. Women don't think about sex very much. That's not true. Women think about sex as much as men do. It is just frowned upon in Western society to admit this. Women even look at porn. 8. Women don't like casual sex. That depends on the woman. I've known women that pretty much only had casual sex till they found one person they decided they were going to settle down with. I know people who've had one lover in their entire life. And each is fine. The one lover one is a little less common. Your average American person has approximately 13 lovers over the course of their life. So, if your lover has had more of those, don't judge them. If your lover has had less than that, don't judge them. How about you just don't judge your lover? Here we go. 9. Boys buy the condoms. No. Smart people buy condoms. Male, female, doesn't matter. Smart people buy condoms. And like I said, you can turn them into dental dams. 10. Frigid wives make cheating husbands. No, they don't. The whole concept of frigidity is just bizarre. If two people aren't sexually compatible, maybe that's a sign their relationship just isn't going to make it. This is one of the reasons I personally endorse the idea of making sure that you are sexually compatible prior to marriage, which is the major commitment, not just of a spiritual, emotional bonding, but financial. It's a lot of work that goes into getting married. It's a lot of work to get unmarried. So you should really make sure that you are sexually compatible, in my opinion, prior to marriage. But no, if your spouse cheats on you, and it says husbands here, but people can have same-sex relationships. If your spouse cheats on you, there's another issue going on. And yes, I have known women who were in full-time, long-term relationships with other women. They did get cheated on. So this isn't just a male thing, folks. 11. You have to wax. No, you don't. If you want to shave your legs, shave your legs. You want to wax your legs, wax your legs. You don't ever want to shave your entire life, don't shave your entire life. If your partner judges you on the amount of hair you have on your body, find a new lover. 12. You can't have sex on your period. That isn't true. In fact, sex during your period can actually help relieve cramps because it is fun, feels good, and can be release hormones, stress hormones, so that the cramps will be less severe. It's going to be messier. Big deal. Most people have access to showers. And so, yes, you can actually have sex during your period, and you can and someone can actually go down on you as well. Blood isn't that gross, folks. 13, sex is supposed to hurt sometimes. Yeah, we're right back to the whole myth thing. If sex hurts, and you don't want it to hurt, I'm not judging people who are into pain, there's a problem. And if you're into pain, and you decide partway through that you don't want to be in this situation anymore, that's where the control word, the safety word comes from. And if the person doesn't listen to you, never ever be near them again. But no, sex is not supposed to hurt. That's just twisted, folks. That's a level of entitlement and hatred for another person that is disturbing. 14, once you start having sex, you're not allowed to say stop. Feeding right back into what I said a moment ago, yes, you can. Doesn't matter what stage you are involved in sex. If you decide you're done, male or female, gay, straight, bi, trans, what you are, what sex, gender, orientation you are, if you decide at any point to say, I'm just not in the mood anymore, it's done. And if the person continues, that's rape. 15. Women don't watch porn. Remember what I said earlier? Women watch porn. They may watch different types of porn. They may watch the same thing as you watch. They may watch things that you have no interest in. There could be stylistic differences. For example, there tend to be a different directorial style between many female directors of porn and many male directors of porn, but that isn't always true. But yes, women enjoy porn. And there's nothing wrong with that. Porn is not an issue, folks. If you become obsessed about something, it is the obsession you have to figure out. The thing you are becoming obsessed with isn't necessarily bad. It just means that you have some issue that you need to work out. 16. Sexual harassment is normal. No, it isn't. Sexual harassment is an aberration. Sexual harassment is a crime. And I'll be covering that in a video later this week, probably. At least I plan on it. But no, do not ever think for a heartbeat, regardless of who you are, that anyone gets to verbally or physically harass you. That's not normal. And anyone who tells you, no, it's normal. Anyone who poo-poos you and tells you it's all right. You should be complimented if men are screaming at you in the street. Oh, he just touched you because he likes you. He doesn't know how to express himself. No, that's crap. If some woman feels up your ass in public, you don't like it, that's harassment. Some man touches you without permission, that's harassment. Someone tells you something of a sexual nature and you don't want that kind of contact with that person, that's harassment. Harassment is up to the person receiving the phrase or the touching. The intent of the toucher or the speaker doesn't friggin' matter. The person receiving it thinks it's harassment. And you can harass a boyfriend, a girlfriend, a spouse. You can harass a coworker, a boss. You can harass anybody. Anyone can be harassed. Anyone can be a harasser. So, it is not normal. It should not be accepted. And last, everybody is doing it. And we're right back to the whole myth that everyone around you is having sex. Unless, of course, as I said, you count masturbation, when pretty much everyone is having sex. We need to make sure that these myths stop being taught to our kids. We need to have healthy, open discourse on sex education, to making sure not only do people understand what the biological aspects of the process is, but how to have good sex. That good sex is something we should all consider to be our right. We should have access to good sex. And even if that means good sex by yourself, you should be taught and told how you can achieve that end. Sex should not be taboo. All of us are sexual beings. And we need to never forget that. So, Go look at the lists, go look at the comments, because there's little comments about every single thing I said that say things that's slightly different than I did. And then there's going to be a Metafilter thread about the second list I just read, the 17 points. I don't know why the 16 points for the men and 17 for the women. Who knows? Maybe because virginity is a bigger issue for women than it is for men. No less or more or less nebulous, of course, but for some reason that onus is placed upon women more than it is for males. So, read the lists and comment below. Tell me what you have to say. I tried to be as even-handed here as I could. I have been accused of bias in the past. Bias that I don't actually have, but that doesn't stop it being bandied about anyway. So I'm interested in hearing what you have to say about these topics. What are some of the myths that you have encountered in your life about sex that you discovered at a later date were full of crap? Or what are some of the ones that you currently believe that you think may be full of crap and you'd like to have it confirmed? Because if I can't answer it, I'm sure someone in the comment thread can. So here you go, folks. These are myths we tell people, and we really need to stop.